Hi, I'm Danyelle Campbell and I'm here at the Busby Ranch in Millsap, Texas. And right now we're going to go over rib cage control in your horse, which is basically the same as body control. I'm a firm believer that the rib cage controls every part of the horse's body. So I'm going to I hear a lot of barrel racers talk about keeping their hips in, or keeping their shoulders up. And you'll hear me say keeping their shoulders up occasionally, but I do it with my leg by getting rib control. So like basically right here, I'm not even lifting my hand to pick up his shoulder, but his shoulder is up, his inside shoulder's up simply because I have him broke in the rib cage. A couple things I want to say about like kicking hips in versus rib cage control. If I get this horse's ribs broke, with my inside leg, I'm using right leg pressure, and I have his shoulders up, his hind end and I keep him moving forward. Forward motion is key, okay? If I keep him moving forward, this horse has absolutely no choice but to have his butt follow, which means our biggest fear of having a horse swing their butt around a barrel simply cannot happen if you have the rib cage bent and their front feet are moving forward. I try to tell people that it's kind of like, imagine a train, okay? Your horse's body is the train. This is the caboose, and this is the front engine, okay? All of this is the parts in between. If this part suddenly stops, right here, meaning the front feet, this has nowhere to go but off to the side. If you keep the front end up and moving forward, the caboose has no choice but to follow, okay? So I try to ride my horse from here forward. I don't pay any attention to what's going on back here. Never in my life have I ever worried about what their hip is doing, because I know if I have complete control of their ribs, that means I have total body control. So I ride with a lot of legs. Everything I do is legs and braking in the rib cage. Inside leg, then pull the rein. I never just grab their face. I never just pull them without using leg pressure. I want this horse to know when I touch your nose, it means break in the rib cage, okay? And it doesn't even necessarily mean turn, because I might touch his nose and counter arc him a little bit, but again, I'm doing that while braking at the rib cage. And then when he's broke in the ribs, I can go from a counter arc to a turn by barely moving my hand, because his body's already set up to do anything I want because I have his body soft. The soft body comes from rib control. Rib control equals body control. A lot of people deal with bracy horses, even in slow work, even anything, turning and their horse is stiff and bracy on the bit, or they're making a run and halfway through the turn, their horse raises his head and fights the bit and doesn't want to finish. So the first thing everyone thinks is, oh, he needs his teeth done, which he might. Dental work's very important. However, they think it's a bit problem, so out comes the tie down, out comes the German martingale, out comes a bigger shank. But at no point are they going to and breaking that horse's rib cage so he physically can make the turn. Barrel racing is, it's a speed event. It's timed. Every thousandth of a second counts. So you have to set yourself up and your horse to be able to succeed. And for me, in my style of training, that's by breaking in the rib cage. And it doesn't really matter how much bend I have. I can break this horse in the ribs without having much bend. He knows to bend because I taught him to. But by doing this, see how he just gives his face all on his own? That means my horse is soft. But even if I want to kind of take him by surprise, he kind of has to turn because he's broken the ribs, okay? And that's what it's about, is having your horse soft enough that they can physically do anything, because there's going to come a time in your runs that you're on bad ground, or you need to help one more, or they might stumble a little and need to recover. And if they're soft in the body, see that? I'm just able, he's like butter. I can pull him around any which way, and because he's broken the ribs, he's able to do it. So if you don't really understand how to break a horse in the rib cage, just think of it like you really got to use your inside leg, and it's shocking how many horses can't. This is a very common problem and something that I spend hours teaching young horses, and I do it just like this. I do it by walking circles, and a lot of times as an aid, I'll use a tire. I'll put just a regular tire off your truck, in the center of my circle instead of a barrel, and I'll set my hand in one spot and I'll use my leg to control my horse. And by doing that, it's gonna teach this horse to bend his ribs and move forward. My main goal is gonna be to keep him moving forward in the circle. I'm not gonna use so much leg. See how now he's floating out? I'm gonna make really sure and be very aware of what's going on underneath me, and that even though I have him bent and I have his ribs bent and his shoulder up through this turn, that I move forward. I always want everything in line under me, and that's where you get body control through the rib cage, and it's all off your inside leg. But I'm just gonna teach this horse to keep walking this circle nice and soft using my legs. And again, because he's broke in the ribs, at any point, I can say, okay, now turn, and he's prepared to take that step to finish that turn, which is where you get your explosion and your speed leaving a barrel. For me, it all is based on rib control. Again, that's what controls the entire horse. So when I have him soft in his body, he has to be soft in the face. So without the use of my legs through the training process, I would be lost, because that's what everything's about. But I never ever allow my horse to start a turn without being soft in his body, and I don't allow him to try to finish it if he tries to get stiff through the turn. So I'm gonna work on, after I have a horse ready to do that and able to make those moves, when I do the pattern, if I'm coming to my second barrel, I'm gonna get him soft before I ever let him start his turn, and I'm gonna hold this softness throughout the turn with my inside leg. And to finish, I'm just gonna remove a little inside leg pressure and maybe just barely pull my hand a little more to the left. If I let go of my inside leg and use too much outside leg coming around a turn, I risk, I'm gonna make this super dramatic for you guys, I risk losing my rib control and pushing my horse's ribs and shoulder into the barrel, okay? This is why I'm not an outside leg user, because my entire theory and my style of barrel racing is based on inside leg rib control. Again, if I take that inside leg out, I have to make him do it wrong. If I take that inside leg out, then I risk, see now what he's doing? He's shoving his shoulder and his ribs right here to the inside of the circle, and I don't want that. I want it elevated and up. So that's why I don't really believe in using a lot of outside leg pressure, and some people do, and it works for them, but this is just my style and how I do it. I'm gonna hold this in even if I want him to finish. I mean, I can get this horse, hey, stay in this, to finish and cross over right there using my inside only, no outside pressure. So it's just like anything with a horse, it's a learned movement. It's something that you have to teach them, but they learn by repetition. So as long as you know what you're going for, you're able to now put that in your horse. Pick your feet up, buddy. It's not always the most coordinated one. But see, a lot of people, even if they want to kind of do a 180 or somewhat, make their horse's front feet cross over, they're going to let them get stiff, and they're going to use their outside rein like that to shove them over. I can do that better without a barrel in the center. But to get that move, they'll kind of go more like this and get one stiff and flat. Where me, I want them, he got a little loose there, but I want them to do it with their nose coming around, and he's still crossing over with his outside front leg, but now he's doing it with rib and body control, which is the exact move I want him to make going around and leaving a barrel. So that's where the rib cage important comes in my form of training. Everything I do, that's the first rule. Breaking the rib cage, forward motion. As long as I have those two things, I feel like I'm set up to succeed with my horse, because I'm physically making his job easier. If I try to get him to turn and I don't ever give him the benefit of setting his body up for it, he's gonna dread the turn. It's gonna be difficult for him. I'm gonna be asking him to do stuff that he physically can't do, and he's gonna know it. So he's gonna start anticipating the fact that he can't turn, and then that's when you start getting the head in the air and the running by barrels and the blowing off. It's just improper body position. You never see a horse that is soft and set up properly fail to finish or make that turn. It's all body position. It's very rarely a head problem or a bit problem or in their face. Like I said, if they're soft here, they're soft in their face. They just go hand in hand. So when I'm having a problem, I always use my feet first to get the body loose. And I mean, that's even like backing up. I mean, I'm just gonna barely touch my reins, but I'm using my legs to get those feet up and moving on him. If this horse braces on me, the first thing I'm gonna do is put, I mean, you can see here, even though he's not, if I use my leg, he has to first pay attention, but you can see how much he gives his face. Right there, he stuck his head up. If I use my foot, he brings his head down. So you just really want to keep that body soft. And again, your legs is what makes your hands work. So never use one without the other. Never just pull on your horse without setting them up in their body to succeed and do the job you're giving them.